Welcome back here to Lafayette Art and Wine Festival. This is Tripper Ortman, your host from Section925.com. I'm here with our first guest of the day at the Art and Wine Festival, basketball insider and Lafayette local, Jon Wheeler. Jon, welcome back in the Pod Center.
Thank you. Good to see you. What a great day. It's already crowded. Early morning, we're ready to roll. I'm fired up. There is never a bad day to talk sports in general. But if you're talking basketball, come on, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, it is the off season. It is the off season, and I think some people are not thinking about basketball.
Right.
Why should they be thinking about basketball now? I know you're thinking about it all the time. Why should everybody else be thinking about basketball?
Because we have two possible potential top 25 teams in the Bay Area. One in the bucolic setting of Moraga, already preseason top 25 team. And we know how that is. Coaches don't always like that. They'd rather be the hunter than the hunted. And, you know, I think surprising, I don't want to say surprising, I think a little bit under the radar could be the Cal Bears, even though they had a loss on the perimeter of Jordan Matthews. I think they could end up being a top 25 team by the end of the year.
Why don't we jump right into Cal, since you brought it up in college basketball. I was going to start somewhere else, but you talked about Jordan Matthews. The impact of Jordan Matthews leading the program at Cal, what impact is that going to have immediately for the Bears next year?
Well, obviously they're going to have a chance for other guys to step up, and all those other coaching cliches that we use. It'll give opportunities for others, younger guys, and maybe have them gather more minutes to develop their skill set over this season. But it hurts them this year because you want experience, especially on the perimeter. Look, let's be honest, in college basketball or basketball in general, there's not a lot of good bigs, back to the basket, traditional low post guys. So when you have an effective post presence such as Ivan Rabb and even Okoro, I mean, he's come along. You have to deal with him a little bit more. Teams don't have a lot of that. And so you want experience in guys that have played with that crew on the perimeter. So the more experienced and good perimeter players you have, the better. Jordan Matthews was a borderline all Pac-12 level guy. So that's a big hole. Now they do have Singer, they do have Bird, and they have some other guys that will kind of come in and have a chance. But if you had Jordan Matthews, you'd have a really experienced perimeter with a really good big man play. And then you can bring those other guys off the bench and develop them at a little better pace that may suit them. So they're going to need an immediate impact guy that hasn't had a lot of minutes in a Cal uniform.
Well, they had a couple. They had a couple guys transfer in, and I know we're going to talk about Marcus Lee in a minute from Kentucky, who we think is probably not going to be able to play this year.
Correct.
But what about Jordan Cornish and Grant Mullins? Can Grant Mullins be your perimeter guy? He's a three-point shooter,
right?
Who's transferred
Right.
in from Columbia.
And he's your typical. I say typical. He's your spot-up shooter that you need, because you do have some guys on the perimeter that are athletic, can get into those passing lanes, draw the defense, and kick out to an open guy. And you need a guy that's going to knock down shots. Jabari Bird has proven he can do that, I think, certainly the last half of last season. And then now you have the new blood who has played at the Division I level. It was at Columbia. That's not necessarily in the Pac-12, but Mullins can knock down shots, so we hope that he can do that this year. I do think he'll get open looks. It's whether or not he can knock them down. Because the guys around him, they're going to create opportunities for him.
How surprised were you that Ivan Rabb stayed at Cal?
Completely shocked, to be honest with you. I think we've talked off the podcast or off the microphone about that. I felt that if he looked at it just strictly from a business decision, and he had some advisors around him, that they would tell him to go last year, that they would have told him to come out and go to the draft, because the draft was not deep in big men. He is really skilled. He's really good. And so I was shocked at that from that standpoint only. Knowing a little bit about him and what I've heard about him, I wasn't as shocked when I took that category into it, but as a whole I was surprised, because I think most guys look at it and say, maybe this money changes my family and changes generations of my family, who knows. But he is a very, very good player, arguably the best big in the country.
So as a guy who coached at Cal and was active in recruiting at Cal, and Cal at that time when you were involved with Coach Campanelli, had a hard time recruiting locally, and here you have Ivan Rabb from Bishop O'Dowd in Oakland. Do you think the fact that he was a local guy played into his decision to stay because he wants to maybe do something special at Cal?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that, right? I mean, Campanelli finally broke through with Jason Kidd, Lamont Murray, and some of those guys. But in the past 10 to 15 years, certainly get a tough time getting a local guy, maybe writing your own book, so to speak, instead of going through the Kentuckys or the Carolinas or the Kansas type of program, and be another guy in a long line of guys. I think it played a role. He loves family. He likes being around family. Has a great support crew here. My question has always been, would his decision have been different if he was at one of those other places? Because he didn't have his support system nearby. And quite honestly, it wouldn't have been a Cal degree behind his name at a Carolina or a Kentucky. I'm going to take the shot while I can. So that would be my question. I think it played a big role that it is local, he has a support system, and it's Cal.
Let's stay local college basketball. You also brought up St. Mary's College, just a stone's throw away from Art and Wine Festival in Moraga. And last year, St. Mary's was picked to finish last in the WCC by many, and they ended up making a real nice run and ended up at the top of the WCC and really in a run at the tournament to try to get a spot in the NC2A tournament. Right. We talked about that. And they were a young team. It was going to be a rebuilding year. It turned out that they exceeded expectations. But once you exceed those expectations, everybody's on the lookout for you the next year, right? So what do you expect to see from St. Mary's basketball this year?
Well, obviously an experienced crew. It is a whole different mindset. No matter what you do as a coach, it's very difficult to not have guys read the newspaper, so to speak, or get on the internet and say, hey, we're 15th in the country going in. We're really, really good. So are they going to believe their press clippings? Are they not? They have a ton of experience. They got their whole perimeter back. Rayhan, Emmett Nair, Fitzner, Pinot, Herman. I mean, they got guys. How much did they develop in the offseason? They obviously played together well, and they played together a lot. I think they are a top 15 team. I think if they stay away from injury, and I think if they just block out the noise, positive, negative, because they're not going to go through the season undefeated, or they're not going to go through the season without some sort of adversity, injuries, a bad loss, and then the noise starts, right? Block the noise out, do what you do at a very high level, and I think they're a top 15 team, I really do, and a possible Sweet 16 if they can stay healthy.
This brings us back to Jordan Matthews,
yes,
who ended up at Gonzaga, and he'll be playing against St. Mary's, so he can transfer to Gonzaga and play right away, right? Because he graduated.
That's correct.
So he's going to be a factor playing against St. Mary's. How does that change Gonzaga?
Well, it changes Gonzaga. Again, another experienced guy, right? Another experienced guy on the perimeter. Will he be able to pick up their system of play? I think it's a pretty wide open system of play for their perimeter guys. It's a pretty simplistic approach. We're going to do what we do very simply, very well, and we have better players to do it. So I think he'll fit in fine there. I think the biggest question would be, will he be seeking shots and taking shots away from other guys that may need those shots and be better shots? But I think it strengthens them. I think it gives the conference two really, really good teams, and we're not even talking about BYU and improved Pepperdine. I mean, the league has stepped up, and I don't want to switch off of St. Mary's necessarily, but let's look at some of the coaching changes too. Obviously, you already have Few at Gonzaga, not a change. You have Randy Bennett, arguably Few and Bennett. Few, how you want to rank them, 1 and 2 in the conference with resources versus where they finish every year. Come on, Randy Bennett's at the top of that list. I may be biased, but let's just go with it. So you have Bennett, you have Few, you have Dave Rose at BYU, who's had a long history of success. Now you have Herb Sendek at Santa Clara. You have Kyle Smith, who's a protege of Randy Bennett, who's an excellent coach at USF, and he's going to build that program up. You have Marty Wilson at Pepperdine, who's done a tremendous job, an alum of Pepperdine. And you have a guy who's had a ton of experience at Loyola, who's still building, Mike Dunlap, who's an unbelievable basketball mind. The league has gotten better, not only because Jordan Matthews went to Gonzaga, but because the coaches that are now in the league, I don't know, the next job opening, not sure how many guys are going to be really saying, yeah, I want to be in that league anytime soon.
Well, this is why we talk about basketball in the off season. You got to be excited about it.
I still get fired up. It's September, 17th or whatever, and I'm already fired up.
No, I think that's great, and we should mention that USF is also an assistant coach, Todd Golden, a friend of the pod.
Correct. I forgot that, sorry.
A St. Mary's College graduate, came with Kyle back he was with Kyle at Columbia, went to Auburn, and now has moved back to San Francisco and is helping Kyle over at USF. So he for sure will be coming in the pod center this fall.
We need to have him into the cave.
He'll be there.
Okay, sure. Good.
All right, let's transition into professional basketball. Obviously, the Warriors are the hottest thing in town. Before we get into them, I want to talk about the Olympics for just a minute.
Awesome.
I found the Olympics very frustrating for the U.S. team. I couldn't tell if they were trying to toy with other teams early on in the tournament, and then at the end, obviously, they're throttling teams the last 3 games of the tournament. But early on, they were making these games awfully close. Is Krzyzewski? Is that strategic, or they just didn't have it together? What do you attribute the early, I don't know if it's struggles, but then they throttling guys at the end? What happened?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think number one is there's 2 main things. Number one, the international teams have caught up a bit in terms of their ability level. If you look at the number or percentage of people, of players in the NBA that are from foreign countries, not from America, didn't go through the American system of basketball, AAU, which we know how sterling and how clean that is, and what great coaches they have, versus the academy approach of everyone, of every other country outside of the United States. I think over time that the ability level and the skill level and the team play catches up to the overall ability or skill level of the Americans. The Americans put together teams and they practice and work out for 6 weeks, 5 weeks, and then they go play. A lot of the European team, non-USA teams are together every spring, every summer, so they develop over 4 years, with the pinnacle event obviously being the Olympics. So there's a catch-up factor there. Number 2, I do think that Krzyzewski maybe made things a little bit more difficult. And number 3, I think the American team thought they could just blast teams like they did the last 3, and that they thought they were going to walk over until they hit Australia with Bogut and Delhi and Patty Mills, 2 St. Mary's guys. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, their skill set might be a little bit below yours, but boy, when you've played together and you know each other that well, and we go into all the intangibles, which we talked about with the Warriors last year in the NBA, I think it's tough. It can be very tough. And then you go into a game, we're going to blast them. Not going to happen, guys. It's not going to happen. So I think it was a combination of things, but what happened in the end?
They blew them out in the end.
Yeah, they sure did.
And I figured that might be what you were going to say. I was wondering if you were going to say that it was an attitude thing early on.
It was. I think that was 40%.
All right, so why don't we transition into the Warriors, because after the season ended, obviously, the Warriors, they made a couple pickups, one being Kevin Durant. Who? How are they going to find minutes for all of these guys? Because it's not even just Kevin Durant. They signed Pachulia, some other guys.
Right.
How are they going to? Is it going to be a challenge finding minutes for everybody?
I don't think so. I think in a sense that their bench got a little shorter, actually, because they gave up so much. I think after their top 7, maybe 8, which you're going to get plenty of minutes for those guys, because that's how Coach Kerr likes to play. You're going to bring Iguodala, you can bring Livingston off the bench. That's 7. And then who's your 8th guy, 9th guy? You can figure that out. They have obviously choices. They have Straverjao. I'm not saying he's the answer, but I think my biggest, when I look at them and I look at the numbers and the minutes played, I don't think that'll be as big an issue. I think a bigger issue right away is how many minutes do I play the quote death lineup? Well, I'm jumping to that because when we've talked off the microphone here, the death lineup where you have no center and it's with Draymond at the 5 in the old lineup, they average about 20 minutes a game together. I think they're going to go to 24, 26, so it's half the game or a little bit more. And what you've done is you've substituted Kevin Durant in for Harrison Barnes. I would take that trade or that trade-off any day of the week and shorten my bench, as long as it doesn't shorten it to only 1 guy off the bench or 2. So they're going to need to find an 8th, 9th guy. That's fine. They have some pieces to choose from, but I don't know how you guard that death lineup now. I don't. My initial thing was, I'm not going to guard Iguodala. I'm going to make him beat us, but he can. So now what do? I think that poses big problems.
We've talked over the time together here in the Pod Center during basketball season, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again. How long will it take other teams in the NBA to catch up with the Warriors? Now with these moves, are the Warriors now that much more untouchable? I mean, they didn't win the championship.
Right.
I mean, we can talk about whether they won the championship or should have won the championship or whether it was fixed or whatever. But
it's over now.
It's over. How much better are they than the next best team? Whether that's Cleveland, whether that's Portland, who got better. How much better are they this year?
Well, there are some ifs. I mean, what a message it is that one of the best players in the world says, I want to be in that environment. That was we can break down, he didn't like, or he did like, or what. He wanted to be in this environment. That's a huge thing. When you change the culture of your team and your organization to that level, and Kevin Durant wants to come play for you, it speaks volumes. That's going to bring other players later on when they can or cannot re-sign all these other guys that they have. I just think that they're ahead of everyone and ahead of the curve, but they're also approaching where the game is going. I mentioned earlier how there are no bigs. There's no more effect. There are very few effective back to the basket players anymore. There aren't any. The European style of play has always been spread the floor and your bigs can shoot and draw the other bigs out. And so with that in mind, I think the Warriors they're there now with Jaja Pachulia, right? You can say, oh, he's 7 foot and he rebounds pretty well. But he can hit that 17, 18 footer, and by the way, 70+% from free throw line, which will be an upgrade from Bogut. I love Andrew Bogut. He did great things for us, but for the Warriors. But they are ahead of the curve. They are going to go 5 out a lot more. A lot more teams are trying to get personnel that fits that, but no one has Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, Jaja Pachulia. They don't have it. So until they do, they're going to be light years ahead of everyone. I think they're better than Cleveland. I think they're markedly better than Cleveland. Doesn't mean they're going to win a 7-game series because of injuries, fatigue, and all the rest.
And the NBA.
And the NBA wanted a series. We've talked about it. It's well documented if you want to look it up from people that have been in the NBA office and referees and things like that are no longer in the league. The league likes 6- and 7-game series.
So as we, believe it or not, wrap up,
okay.
You always have your plugs. I'm sure you have your plugs ready. I hope you have your plugs ready. I want to send a plug out for everybody that's out here at the Art and Wine Festival, Warriors fans. If you walk up the street here to our friends at 3571 Mount Dale Boulevard, Venture Quality Goods, and you look in the window, there is a plethora of Warriors signed gear, jerseys, and just last night, Kevin Durant, if you saw it, was out at Pac-Bell Park, or whatever they call it now, and signing baseballs, and Tom up there at Venture is going to have Kevin Durant sign baseballs in the store later today. He's got jerseys, all kinds of things. So if you're a Warriors fan and you want some gear, go up to our friends and sponsors up at Venture Quality Goods up the street here during the Art and Wine Festival.
Wow, you scooped me on that one. I didn't know.